I'm going to jump into it 'cause I know our time is ticking, but
Okay.
I just want to introduce everyone to someone who has taught me a lot in the industry, had me focus on cannabis justice and looking on it as more as a medicine versus just something to consume. So as you see her shirt, it says it's a medicine first. I will love to introduce y'all to Saki, the owner, well, co-founder of Tainted Love BK. And Saki, just tell the people a little bit about you and what Tainted Love is and how it's truly a medicine first.
When we started Tainted Love, we started it as a place for people to have safe consumption. And that really was born out of the fact that in New York City, we have the highest arrest rates in the world for cannabis, and mostly for people who look like us. So it was a way for people to consume and not be seen smoking. So we started making food products. But then over time, I'm a geek. And so I started doing more and more research, getting more involved in really the advocacy parts of the plant, how prohibition started, how the plant works with your body. And I started realizing that this was a really kind of a two-faceted kind of thing that happens with cannabis. We have cannabis, the drug, the thing that was vilified, the thing that was, used as a tool to keep us basically under paperwork and, build files against us and keep foots on our necks, right? And then we have this thing that for millennia was used as part of society. It was really part of society. It was, before anything else, a medicine. Before anything else, it was a tool for wellness, right? And so that made me realize that safe consumption isn't just about you being able to hide your cannabis use. Safe consumption means getting true education about the plant, understanding how it works, why it works the way it does, but more than that, its place and role in society, in your life, and in your personal wellness, right? And so with that, our goal of being a place for safe consumption turned into education. And we became, we became an organization whose goals then became about teaching our community about the plant and ways that they can use it safely for themselves. And part of that is social justice. So that's the activism and advocacy. And then the other part is education.
I love that you tied the two together about how the duality of cannabis just is in our lives. And with that, you kind of touched on this a little bit, but how would you explain that cannabis plays in this new age of social justice that we're fighting against right now?
So, in the United States, people always try to separate things. Oh, why are you talking about slavery? That's ancient history. The Romans and the Greeks, that's ancient history. Mansa Musa, that's ancient history. The US slave industry, that shit is not ancient history. That shit is barely 6 generations ago. That is not ancient history. We ain't in BC. We're, so, and you're also talking about something where the abolishment of it, there's been less time between the abolishment of the US slave industry than the actual industry itself. The industry itself lasted in this country longer than it's been abolished in this country. So we like to compartmentalize and separate the things that are difficult for us to talk about in this country, right? And you can't do it. You can't do it because then you don't get the healings that they say they want. Oh, the civil rights movement healed all sorts of things. No, it didn't, because it didn't deal with the truth of this is how things are. This is the way they need to be. It also made a lot of compromises to make people happy. Like, oh, we'll just give them that, right? So we do a lot of that. We do a lot of that in this country where we don't talk about full issues because they're difficult issues to deal with. They're complex and they're multifaceted, and you have to deal with these things But the thing that people really don't get is healing hurts. And people don't want to go through the part of healing that hurts. When you fall on your knee and you get a scab, right? You might not feel it right away because your adrenaline's kicking in, right? But then you're like, ooh, that hurts. Then the scab kicks in and it itches and it itches and it itches. And you're like, oh, and then you have to keep yourself from not scratching off the scab.
Making it a fresh wound again.
Exactly. And this is what we do in this country. It itches and we scratch it and we don't let it heal, and we don't heal anything, and the itching happens. But what we don't realize, if we just let the itching and the hurting happen and work through it, then the next thing you know, oh my God, I don't even feel it anymore. And oh, look, all those little black marks in there. Look at it starting to heal. And then next thing you know, your skin is back to normal. And so we have to allow the healing to happen. And the healing means the hurting. Every time. Every single time.
I love it. I love how he just like slid on. He's like, hello.
Just shows up magically every time. So we have to remember that we can't separate the criminal justice parts of cannabis from the medical justice parts of cannabis. And they're one and the same. And if we start to put the plant back in its place as a medicine first, that will adjust the way we think about legalization. It'll adjust the way we legislate the plant. It'll adjust the way we enforce the plant, law enforcement. It'll adjust the way we treat people with the plant. We won't vilify them anymore. So for me, that foundation changes everything. But I can't just say, oh, it's a medicine first. We should only care about patients. We should only care about it as a medicine. It's not a drug. Let's not deal with it like it's a drug, because we can't do that. Because in this country, we have socialized our people, my grandparents. I'm 48 years old. My grandfather's 95. So from him to now, even my children who are teenagers and small children, as you could see what popped in here, it's still a drug, right? So that's 4 generations. Exactly. So that's 4 generations of people who treat this like a drug. You can't just say, oh, it's not a drug, it's a plant. We have to, that's the healing that has to hurt. We have to go through that. How did it get to be a drug? Why was it classified as a drug? This thing was a medicine and now it's a drug. Cocaine is a drug and a medicine, but marijuana isn't, you know what I'm saying? Things like that. We have to deal with that. We can't just say, oh, let's ignore that because we can make this money. Let's ignore, or let's just deal with the criminal justice part of it because that's what's done the most harm. All of it has done the most harm. Because we treat it like a drug, even if we legalize it and we don't educate people about why we need cannabis in our society, why we need cannabis in our ecology, people will still be ashamed to use it. People will still abuse it. They will overuse it in ways that aren't beneficial to themselves mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, right? So we have to deal with the whole issue. We have to, as advocates, activists, and educators, even as just straight business people, if we don't deal with it as a whole issue, it's going to backfire and we won't get the ability to maximize what the plant offers us. And it offers us balance. That's 100% what the plant does. It offers balance to our human bodies, our human minds, and our human spirits.
With that, when you talk about educating people, have you find it kind of hard to get people from those 4 different generations to help them kind of understand what this plant actually is and show them the benefits? Or have you had just like a lot of people kind of willing to listen versus pushback?
So for me, the part that I have found that it's really been the breakaway to getting people to understand the plant better is talking about it like a medicine, talking about it as a tool for wellness, talking about how the plant works and works with the body, when you get them there first, when you talk about the endocannabinoid system, when you talk about how cannabis works with our bodies and how long it's done so, that gets them there first. Because there are a lot of people, I say there's 3 groups of people who deal with cannabis. Ones who embrace it as a drug and think that it's a moral issue, right? But are willing to talk about legalization for tax revenue, to make money off of as a business or a tax revenue, right? Then you have the people who think this is a social justice issue. People have been going to prison, they've been losing their homes and losing their children. No one should do that over any drug, right? And those folks, you can get them there with the social justice, but then you have to get them out of the mindset. This is not a drug. This isn't an acceptable drug versus an unacceptable drug. Like, you have to get out of this drug mentality with this, right? Then you have the 3rd group of people, where for them, it's a medicine. Like, we should have rights to our medicine. We should be able to grow our medicine. It should be just like tomatoes, where we can grow our own tomatoes in our yard. And they can see the social justice aspects of it because they have been, as patients, they haven't had access to the plant. It's not safe because they have to go to an illicit market. Or they are just full blown into like that hippie culture we think of. We grow our own plant, da, da, da. So they see the social justice aspect in terms of their, the hard time that they've had with consuming and acquiring the plant. So they don't actually see the racial part of it. That's more of
it's a different perspective, because
exactly.
they've seen it as, this is my medicine, not, Black and brown people.
Yeah. Y'all have been arrested, but we've been arrested too.
Yeah.
I grew 6 acres of marijuana, and the feds came and took my medicine.
Yeah.
I get reparations. You're like, dude, my cousin's been in jail for 20 years for a dime bag. Are you serious?
Half a gram, half a blunt.
Yeah. So, it's good to see you out, but my cousin's still locked up. Because that was his 3rd strike. You got that, right? And the first 2 strike were also possessions. So come on, man.
A small amount of cannabis that they thought was illegal, and he was intent to distribute, and here we are.
But the point is, we have these 3 groups of people, and we have to, bring them together. And we have to bring them together with all of the aspects. There has to be a holistic view. And I get that that's difficult because we think about ourselves. We think about how they affect us personally, within our family, within our communities. We don't think about the whole. And if we think about the plant more holistically, it'll make the transition for educating people easier. So the way I educate people is first in the way that affects all of us. And that's, all of us are human, and this plant affects all of us on that basic human level. As a Black woman, of course, the next thing I go to is, but this is the racial shit that's been happening to us around this plant from the very beginning of illegality. This is what's it. And then even on a cultural level, this plant came from brown nations, was been grown in brown nations for years. And then when it became illegal, it was vilified in the nations and the cultures that it came from. Mm-hmm. You have people in the Himalayan mountains that literally have it growing in their yard, and they pull it up like weeds, but they're like, "Ooh, my knees hurt so bad." And you're like, "Wait, what? You're pulling that up and throwing it away? Your knees hurt? Pick that up and dry it and make a tea. Watch how your knees feel better." And this is what your ancestors used to do, but because it's been vilified as an unnecessary, you're literally throwing your medicine out the fucking, into the garbage.
Into the trash, and then paying millions on millions for a prescription that you get hooked on, and you're only making it worse for your body versus that's, like you said, more holistic and more like natural for yourself.
That's the way I like to help bring people to the plant. It's talking about it first from the basic common human nature of the plant. that symbiosis that we have with it.
I love that. And that's honestly, so for those who don't know, I've known Saki since when, like
2 years?
2 years, yeah. And when I used to live in New York, and what brought me to her was her Tainted Love treats. And so Tainted Love actually used to, well, before Corona happened, used to have little classes that could actually teach you how to cook your own edibles to your own liking. I think you guys did like little chocolate bites and different things to help people show them that it's more than just making brownies and more than just making cookies. You can actually use this for tea. You can use this for a full out meal as long as you have like the right amount of coconut oil or butter. Are there more ways that you're trying to help educate people on dosing throughout their daily lives if they are trying to incorporate it as a consumption?
Well, it's weird because, you know, I keep talking about it being a medicine first, but I also really like to think about it as a food. Because to me, food is also your first medicine, right?
Yes.
So one of the reasons that we educate using food is because that's also that basic human commonality. And so people, and I also think food is love. People like food. People join together around food. People have, people have conversations around food. So, and everybody comes to the kitchen, which is where we are right now. But everybody comes to the kitchen. So it's also a good place to talk about how the plant works with your body and how it can work with food and how food works differently than combusting it, right? Than combusting the plant and inhaling the plant. And it shows the diversity of the plant, but it also gives you the ability to control it yourself. When you put it with food, you put it with something that you have your own personal comfort and relationship with, right? You also are able to control the dosage yourself. You can, as you mentioned, infuse it with a fat, a butter, or an oil. You can also just use the plant. You can use the plant raw, or you can activate the plant. You can decarboxylate the plant, right? You can heat the plant up, and you can grind the plant up and use it as you would herbs, spices, teas, right? I actually need to make myself a burdock and nettle tea now. If you're doing something like that now, I don't know why you're going, ooh, that is the bitterest, nastiest, whew.
I'm like, ooh, like,
but but you know, you can think about that, like, ooh, I need to do this tea to enhance, you know, because I need to treat this or I need to treat that. Let me add my cannabis to it. And let's also be clear, when we say cannabis, that does not mean that you necessarily have to be high. This plant works without you being high. And I know that this is something that people are like, oh, I don't want to be high. I don't want to be this. Because you can have a plant that is industrial hemp or CBD and it make you sleepy. You know, for the most part, yes, THC kind of governs our sleepiness, you know, levels, but that's the analgesic part of it as well, the pain relieving part of it as well, right? But CBD has those properties as well. So cannabis is just the plant in general. That's why I say you can use it raw or you can use it heated, right? Because the plant does different things in different stages. Raw, fresh, heated, aged, it all does different things in different stages. And as human beings, we need them in different stages. We need it for different parts of us. And some of us don't need maybe this part of it or the other part. So when we say cannabis, we're not just talking about the get high.
The full
exactly
spectrum.
The leaves, the flower, all of it, you know, all of that is of use to our human bodies, our human nature, except for me, because I'll die, because I'm allergic.
And you can't inhale it, you can't, nothing.
I can't inhale it. I cannot eat it. I cannot rub it on my skin. I am allergic to the plant. Just as a lot of people are allergic to strawberries or peanuts or shrimp, I am allergic to the plant. And this is very important. It is a plant. You know, it's not, we eat poppy seeds. I'm looking at a piece of bread here right now. We eat poppy seeds. Those poppy seeds can be transformed into opioids,
Yes.
right? In certain forms. This plant isn't being transformed into anything when we use it and process it ourselves. It is the plant that we're using. Think about it like the peppermint that you're growing in your yard.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it like
it's like a spice.
Yep. Think about it like the rosemary or the basil that you're growing. Maybe you use the basil as a tea because you really need that strong anti-inflammatory, or you turn the oregano into a tea because you need that strong immune building, part of it. But then you'll use it to put into your pasta sauce because you want that oregano flavor. Do you see what I'm saying about the plant? It's that level of diversity, and that's why we talk about it like a medicine, and it can also be used like a food. And we create those commonalities so that people understand how the plant should work for them. But you do also have to have the science to understand how not to overuse it and to use it for your best means. I have this story that I tell about oregano oil. I had an ear infection of sorts, right? And I used oregano oil and garlic oil with a little olive oil in it as a carrier.
Okay.
I was being impatient and I was like, I don't have time to do this. And I took the dropper and I just put a couple of drops of straight oregano oil into my ear, right? I've never felt such burning in my life. And it burned, literally. The oil came down my skin, it burned my face, it burned, but it also cleared up the infection.
Whatever was going on is gone.
I could hear clearer than I had heard since I was a child. But it worked. Medicinally, it worked for me the way I needed it to, but I overused it. I overused it in a way that wasn't beneficial to the rest of my wellness because I had this big burn mark down my ear, and it was painful. I mean, painful, like I screamed. I have a high tolerance for pain, and I screamed. So, when we talk about using things for wellness, that's oregano oil. That's not, we're not talking about, I had to go to Pfizer and they had to create, something in the lab and straight oregano oil.
It's an herb that you just decided to use a home remedy, and that's powerful.
And it worked unpleasantly. And I misused it. And so, we have to be real with the way we talk about it. Yes, it's a plant. Yes, it does this benefit, but we have to understand the science of it, and we have to use it in a way that's safe and responsible for us. That boop in my ear was not safe and responsible. And that's the complexity. So you see how we just went through, like, wait, she said it was a criminal justice issue. She said it was a medicine. She said it was a food. Like, what is it? What is she talking about? This is confused. It's not confused. It's complex.
That's all it is. And speaking of complex, I know that voting we're like basically a week away. Mm-hmm. How do you think that this election, of course, every election is important in our nation, but this one in particular is the one that we all need to be focused on? And they also talk about different topics such as cannabis reform in some of the candidates' conversations. And so how would this one play a role for us cannabis advocates out there, or people who consume and support cannabis? And what do we need to look forward to as far as like making sure we have the proper voting and what that actually looks like for us in the next coming years?
I think elections are very traumatic for people of color in this country, especially for Black people. And I say especially for Black people because there was a huge fight for us to get the right to vote. Mm-hmm. And our right to vote isn't even ratified into the US Constitution. It's voted on and renewed. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 is voted on and renewed every 20 years. Mm-hmm. Within my lifetime, the two presidents that renewed it were Reagan and Bush Jr. I believe it gets renewed again in 2027. So I think that speaks a lot to where voting stands in this country. As a Black woman, my right to vote isn't even covered by the suffragist movement. It can be proven by the fact that they had the right to vote and still was in the 1920s, and it wasn't until 1965 that my grandmother was able to vote. So I think that that is significant for us as people of color. But it's also traumatic for us because we're either told we have to save the nation with our vote, we have to save the principles of justice and liberty with our vote because it matters to us the most. Yet every year we're kicked to the backside when it comes to dealing with the issues that we're supposed to be championing. You all are supposed to be advocating for these things, but then when we ask for them, oh, you're asking for too much, or be patient, or whatever that is. So it's traumatizing because every year we're told, yes, we have to deal with these issues that really deal with your community and vote for us because we're going to deal with them. And then we're set to the caboose of the train again. Yeah. So you bring us to the front to steam engine this move for justices and equalities. And then when the train is now on the track and moving forward, oh, can y'all move to the back? Because we're going to deal with this other stuff that's really more important.
Like y'all don't have tickets, so y'all can't get on this train.
At all. It's traumatizing. It's traumatizing to be put in this cycle every 4 years, right? Especially for these major presidential and senatorial elections, right? On one level, I never want to tell people, you must go out and vote. On a personal level, I vote every year. I've been registered since I was 17 because when I turned 18, I was going to be able to vote, right? And the next election was, so I've been registered from the get. I'm not a big believer in voting for the lesser of two evils, but I am a big believer in making sure that my number is seen, making sure you know that it's so important that you realize that I'm here and I'm watching you and I give a fuck about what you're saying, then I'm gonna come to the booth and I might not vote for you because I'm telling you, you're not doing what I need you to do. So usually that's where I stand, right? And I think it's very important that we pay attention what happens, especially in our local municipalities, on a state and local level, if you're in a county or a city or wherever you are. I think the difference in the election this year for us as a people is that we have an administration. I don't just mean the president. We have an administration that is literally tearing down every single thing that protects us as Black people, that protects us as people of color in this country. The Native nations, the indigenous Native nations of this land have lost treaty protections. They have lost land rights. They have, again, been told they don't have sovereignty. And that and this is on a federal level, right? We have had weapons of war literally televised and used against us in this country because this administration has released the limitation on military grade weapons that can be sold to our municipal law enforcement agencies. And so we've had more weapons of war used in the streets against us, especially during the uprisings against racial injustice this year, right? So these are the things that this administration has done against us as people of color in this nation. That's only a few of them. Now, in terms of cannabis, specifically in terms of cannabis, neither candidate really supports the kind of cannabis reform we need to have. The Democratic Party has come this short of doing what they need to do to protect us as a nation in terms of cannabis reform. The Republican Party has left it open to be a way to make money. The Democratic Party has said, oh, we have to make these criminal justice reforms because specifically Black and Latin people. Let's not forget our Native people have been also really, really traumatized by cannabis injustice, not just in terms of really harsh over sentencing, but in their sovereign lands, they've been unable to grow their plant.
Yeah, crazy.
So, you know, neither of them has really addressed reform the way it needs to. So the Democratic platform has said, oh, we support criminal justice reforms. We think that we need to just do blanket expungements of marijuana records, and that we need to kind of, decriminalize and lessen the criminology of it and the vilification of it, and the criminalization of it. But they're not addressing a lot of the other root cause. Like, okay, so you're letting states do this, and we're hoping you're going to deschedule it so that we can lift the bans on research.
Yeah.
And so that insurance can pay for it for patients, so that patients have better access to it as a medicine. That's great. We've been asking for that for years. That's great. But if you don't recognize that when you actually legalize a plant and you say decriminalize it, that means that people who might not have the money to transition into the regulated market aren't then recriminalized for being black and broke and still participating in a business that they've been forefronting for 80 years. They're going to go back to prison. And these are the nuances that they're not recognizing. That if you don't decriminalize it, which means legalize it, really, mothers are still going to lose their babies because you're still saying it's a drug and not a medicine for parents. So they're going to lose their babies. Mothers and fathers are going to lose access to their children. People are going to get kicked out of their homes. If you don't address this on a holistic level, and that means true legalization, where we're protected on all of those fronts, and they're not doing that. So in terms of cannabis reform, neither party is really addressing it. The Democratic Party is addressing at least the criminal injustices and the racial injustices that have happened with the plant, but not in the way that needs to happen to make sure that our people aren't re-vilified and recriminalized. And not in the way to make sure that we're getting the education and the needs and the protections from law enforcement that have really, really oppressed us over these years. It's like Sisyphus pushing this fucking rock up the hill every day, and then it falls down and you got to do it again. Like, yay, we got up the hill. Woo, decriminalization. Oh, shit. Back at the bottom again. We got to push this up again.
Something slip. We got to start back over.
Yeah.
So this is basically just the upward battle that we're just having to fight, regardless of whatever you do, just making sure that you or us, that we're more educated in what we're voting for and that we understand per state. I feel like the more educated we as a people become, we can then start making points and start speaking our minds and using our voices to truly get what our state and our cities deserve, and soon our nation will follow suit. But I just know it's a lot to think about and a lot to handle, and I guess we just got to be prepared for whatever happens.
And that's the best we can do. It's not the best. I take that back. That's not the best we can do. Because the best we can do is getting the shit that we need. That's the best we can do. But we do need to be educated. We need to stay on point in terms, like I keep saying, understanding these issues as a whole. I know that we like to pick out the pieces that benefit us the most. We like to pick and choose the things that oh, I like this part of what she just said. I don't really like this part. We gotta really digest the whole thing. I'm gonna just eat. I don't like the crust. I'm gonna just eat the peanut butter and jelly.
I don't want that
exactly. I'm gonna eat the peanut butter and jelly part. I'm gonna leave the crust. Now you're still hungry. You're still hungry because you left out the sandwich there.
That's all we gotta do is just finish the whole meal. Don't be so picky. Digest everything.
Oh no, we can be picky. But healing hurts. Eat the whole thing. That crust is good for you. Eat the whole damn thing. I get it. I get to being picky. We're Americans. We like shit. We like comforts. We do.
Right.
We do. We like comforts. We like hot running water inside of our bathrooms that we don't have to walk outside and go to the well and pick up and heat up ourselves. We like that. We do. We can do the other stuff, but we like these comforts.
Prefer to do this way.
We like our PlayStation 4s. We like our refrigerators with built-in filters and
our
ice machines.
Store refrigerators.
Exactly. Like, we like that stuff. We're Americans. We do. We're Americans. But we have to look at, you know, the cost of those things, the human cost of those things, and the human cost on ourselves of those things. And that's what the whole picture really means. The whole picture really means owning the fact that you like these comforts, but what's the cost of these comforts? And can I live with the cost of these comforts? And if I can't live with the cost of these comforts, what do I need to do to be able to make sure that these comforts, or at least something that doesn't affect somebody else worse, for me to have these comforts exist, you know? And
Yeah.
that's eating the whole fucking bread, peanut butter sandwich, crust and all. Except for me, because the peanut butter will kill me. And the bread too. The bread and the peanut butter will kill me.
Peanut butter and cannabis. What else? What else are you allergic to?
Bro, you don't even want to know. Wheat,
I feel like
soy.
it's like a list of things that I remember you telling me. I'm like,
I got 7 things in the world I think I can eat.
I'm so sad for you.
No,
I'll enjoy all the other things for you.
I just miss beer. That's all.
You're allergic to wheat.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. So you're gluten free. You're like a gluten free person.
I don't think I have yes, I am, because basically gluten-free is wheat-free mostly in this country, but I can't eat corn, so that'll kill me too.
Oh.
So if you're thinking of sending gifts, no corn.
No, don't send Saki anything.
Exactly.
Just send her love and money, and just buy her a shirt, which looks so cool.
Oh yeah, shirts.
Make sure you buy her a shirt. But Saki, I just want to say thank you so much for your time. And where can everyone find you and keep in touch with you and get a shirt if they want a shirt?
We're rebuilding our website, but we do have one. It's Tainted Love BK for Brooklyn.com. We are also on social media, Instagram at Tainted Love BK, also Facebook, Tainted Love BK, Twitter, Tainted Love BK. But yeah, you know, we're accessible, we're around. There's a team of us who are really spreading this message of education, advocacy, community, justice, you know, what is it? Educate, elevate, cultivate.
Yes. You guys should definitely check her out. She's someone who has opened my eyes to a lot of different things in the cannabis world and just in the world in general.
They're interconnected.
Yes. Yes. Everything's connected. If you're in the New York area, definitely check her out. And I just want to say thank you again for sparking conversation with me today.
We love you, Dion.
Love you too, Saki.